And now I've said this on a number of times on the pod that Tom Wilson, there are 31 other teams that would like to have this guy on their team because he's a unicorn. There's not many of what he brings. He's so tough and he's a really good player. I mean, you got Matthew Tkachuk, Brady Tkachuk, Tom Wilson. How many of these guys are there? Brad Marchand. So yeah, everybody would like to have him. But he's a guy that toes that line, right? And last night, I feel like he definitely crossed it. I mean, if you missed it, there was basically a goal mouth scrum. And after the whistle, Tom Wilson punches Pavel Buchnevich in the head while he was down, then punches Ryan Strome while he was down. And then in fairness to Wilson, Panarin like jumps on top of him, almost like if you were a kid jumping on top of a parent to give you a piggyback ride. So he gets Panarin off of him and then grabs Panarin by the hair, a superstar in this league, grabs him by the hair, slams him down to the ground, almost like a rock bottom. And this is while he didn't have a helmet on, by the way. Extremely, extremely dangerous. And then to top it all off, the grand finale, he's in the penalty box flexing with his jersey off like he is Hulk Hogan. Now, while people were debating this morning how many games he was going to get, the NHL Department of Player Safety, and I use that term loosely, comes out and says Wilson's getting a $5,000 fine. No hearing, no suspension, $5,000 for a guy who makes over $5 million a year. Could have killed him. Sure, that is like the worst thing that could have happened, but could have got really, really hurt. Thank God he didn't. He is going to miss the rest of the year, though. And all you do is fine him $5,000. I'm going to harp back to this because it's still annoying to me. Nazem Kadri gets suspended for an entire playoff series for cross-checking guy who didn't miss a game, yet Tom Wilson gets $5,000 fine. If you made $50,000 a year, this fine would be less than $50 for you. Not less than a speeding ticket. You know the NFL, you know the league that like matters the most, that creates the most headlines, that people care about the most. They fine players $5,000 for wearing their socks too low. So now I get that the $5,000 fine, it's like the maximum allowable under the CBA, but you could have just suspended him for games. They have 4 games left in the regular season. Just suspend him, and then he loses that money. And then at least you're playing into the people that want blood. Like there's people out there that are saying this guy needs to be suspended to the league, never play again. Okay, relax a little bit. But have we not learned anything from that Bertuzzi-Moore incident 17 years ago or however many years ago it was? You don't suspend them, and now you leave it up to the Rangers to take matters into their own hands. What do you think is going to happen next game? We're all going to tune in. The NHL's got us on that one for sure. We are all going to tune in. That's for sure. But, like, come on. The easy thing was to do, just suspend them for the rest of the regular season, and we move on. That's it. But now you have the Rangers putting public statements out that George Parros should be fired, which he should because he's done a terrible job. All you have to do is give him 4 games to squash it. Now, that's my position. You're going to hear from these guys who are going to give you the other position, and I can't wait to hear it. So I want to bring them in for this. Bobby, Frankie, help me out here. Explain this one from the league.
Okay, let's get something straight here. I don't think either of us condone what he did, because that now we're just being Rob might, because Rob just likes the heat. Feel. See what I did there, eh? But no, because let's get this straight. I do not condone what Tom Wilson did, but I can tell you, Tom Wilson is no dummy. Okay, Tom Wilson knows what he can and cannot get away with. Okay, my question to you is, what did he get fined for? What did he get fined for?
He got fined for the punch to Buchnevich.
Correct. In the CBA, that's the worst it gets for that. Okay, for that. He did hit him from behind. Okay, he didn't try to stab him with a skate. I know I'm going off the, but he did something that was clearly in the CBA rulebook, and that's the worst it can get. Okay, he wasn't thinking about the rulebook when he did it, but he knows what he can get away with. He's been there before. All right, he was suspended this year. for something different, for boarding. But he got suspended for it because that was allowable in the CBA. So whose fault is it really that we're sitting here today talking about a fine? Is it the way the CBA is written? Or is it Tom Wilson knowing that, hey, you know what? If I just give this guy an elbow, I'm only going to get a $5,000 fine. All the shit, all the stuff about in the penalty box, he got a 10-minute misconduct. I know that because it's on my fantasy team. Help me with my penalty minutes. Okay? But seriously, if you really think about it, he hit him in the head. He got fined. Panarin coming to his aid, which let's go there in a different segment. Panarin, who came to Buchnevic's his aid, gets into a scrum. Wilson, who's bigger, is stronger, takes him to the ground. Almost hit his head. That can happen to anybody. We're just making this a bigger thing. It's Tom Wilson, right? A guy who I would put on my team, like you said, Joe, every day of the week. Okay? And I bet you if this was Toronto, we'd probably be having the same type of reaction. I'd be hoping Simmons was on the ice when this happened. But what is Panarin doing? What is he doing? Somebody should have got in there, taken a third man penalty in, and get Panarin the hell out of there. Right?
He's sticking up for his teammate. That's what we all say our players have to do.
But have another guy jump in. It's not worth it, buddy. You'd look like a hero in front of your team. Not worth Panarin getting hurt. Okay? So that's my stance on it. Was it wrong? Yeah, but under the CBA, he got what he deserved.
I'm really fighting this because, like, Tom knew what he was doing. Like, Tom's a smart dude. I think, like, I equated this to the Chara and Pacioretty thing, where Chara knew what he was doing to Pacioretty. There was no way to prove that he did it on purpose, but he knew what he was doing. Tom has to know that is Artemi Panarin. If that's a tough guy, do what you got to do. I think that's a spot where he's got to know. Like, this is one of the softest, nicest guys in the league. That's one thing. The Buchnevich punch, I don't know about you guys. I guess everybody's freaking out. I didn't think it was bad at all. Like, I thought he got him in the shoulder. It was a little shot. And let's be honest, we're about to enter playoffs where this stuff happens on a day-by-day basis. Like, after every puck to the net, there's a scrum. Now, the takedown wasn't the best look for him, but if he stands there and punches him in the head, is that just as good a look? Or either way, whatever he was going to do, unless he had skated away, which is not Tom's style, it was going to look bad. The big winners here are the Rangers because nobody got hurt, nothing catastrophic happened, and they got a lesson and a reminder that it is their job to protect their stars. Here are some names: Lafreniere, Zibanejad, Kako, Fox, Breadman. Who do they got protecting those guys? The league just said, the Rangers, it's up to you to protect your stars. This is now your chance in the offseason to go out, address this toughness, and me and Frank talked about this. I believe, Joe, you were missing this episode. But the Chara signing was a big deal. Not because of what he does on the ice, because you have that nuclear weapon sitting there that allows Tom to basically act however he wants. There's nothing to keep him in check. That's why I thought Chara was a big signing for Washington. It would have been a good signing for the Leafs. But he basically gets to run around and do what he wants. We're going to look – it's vigilante justice now, which I love. I love that throwback hockey.
So reputation does matter. Yes, Tom Wilson. If this was somebody else doing it, we probably wouldn't be as livid. But it's Tom Wilson, who's a repeat offender multiple times, and people are upset. And his reputation precedes himself. So, of course, that matters. And the takedown, man, he's got 60 pounds on him, inches on him. He doesn't have a helmet on, dude. And you're giving him a rock bottom. You're pulling his hair and pulling him down. So dangerous. Dumb.
We're not saying it's not wrong, but that happens. It happens. Like, guys fighting, they take each other down. It happens. I think we're blowing it out of proportion. The fact that Tom is 6'5" and 240 pounds. I think he could have exercised better judgment. But here's what I got this written down. Like, if we're gonna condemn Tom Wilson, we gotta condemn Brad Marchand. Because they're the same guy. It's just one guy is 9 inches bigger and 60 pounds heavier. I think what Marchand and what guys like that do are just as bad, if not worse. Marchand runs around slashing people, punching people. He's just not 6'5" and 200. We're punishing Tom for being gigantic.
Don't start Boston and Joe and not getting calls and stuff. We don't want to go there. But
we're gonna go to a rabbit hole that we don't want to go through.
That's a good comparison, Rob. You know what really kind of scratches my head about this too is that, you know who I really feel bad for? I feel bad for the guys who aren't repeat offenders that get called for the boarding, the elbow. And I think about this because he's a teammate of George Paperos. Woodbridge guy had a Iron Man streak going of his own. Andrew Cogliano wouldn't hurt a fly. Gets suspended from George Paperos. I think it was I can't remember even what it was. Was it an elbow or something like that hit from behind?
Ridiculous.
You know what I mean? And he
doesn't get the benefit of the doubt.
And his former teammate kills his Iron Man streak. Like I'm thinking about myself. That is the real problem here. You're talking about a guy, okay, a former instigator and fighter, George Paperos, a Harvard graduate, or is it Princeton? I can't either one of the years. I know he's
one of those Ivy League
guy. Okay, he's a smart guy. But remember when Brendan Shanahan was the director? He used to come up with these videos trying to explain the side of it. You realize like we don't get that anymore.
Yeah.
It's just here's what it is under the section of the CBA. Without that, I'm not saying it would have been better, or I'm not saying it would have made things right, but it would have maybe softened the blow to those people that are just throwing their hands up there and say, "What the hell?" Blah, blah. There's no other side here. It's just CB, and it makes Paperos look like a villain. And you're right, Joe. The guy, I would side with you to say this guy. I think it's done for him. But how many guys have they turned over in the last 5 years? You know what I mean? So what goes to show you, the CBA is broken with this. It's a mess. So
I want to go back to your point about the deterrence factor. I think there is still a place for that in hockey, for sure. Makes you think twice before you're going to do something dumb. But stuff still happens when you have those players. That kind of stuff still happens. Like when Mark Savard got his career was ended by Matt Cook because of that blindside elbow to the head. You don't want who was on the ice with him? Milan Lucic. It still happened. You know what I mean? So I agree that it is a deterrence, but it doesn't erase it from happening. It still happens.
I promise you, if the Rangers have two fighters, Tom Wilson doesn't do that. Because you know what happens next? Nick Backstrom and Alex Ovechkin get it. Not Tom Wilson. That's how you get them back. You go after the other two.
It's funny you mentioned that because Sean Avery posted on his Twitter account. I don't know if you guys caught this. Sean Avery posted on his Twitter account. I think a Ranger fan requested his response to what would happen on Cameo. And he's like, yo, this is what would happen. I'd get the puck. I'd make sure my boys have my back. I'd get the puck. And I dump it into the corner lightly enough so that the goalie comes out to play it. And when the goalie gets it, I drill him so hard towards.
Sean Avery has become so likable after hockey.
Post-career. Oh, yeah. That's going to be Tom Wilson. Who knows? Maybe he has that personality afterwards.
Isn't that always the case? Now, you know what? It's funny you say that because that is a good segue as to what happens next. This is the best part about having a schedule like a baseball style. These guys are right back at it tomorrow. You know, we can guess of what could happen. Like we just said, the Rangers don't have anybody unless they start pulling slap shot and bringing up, guys from the Penal League to dress as Rangers, Ogie Oglethorpe. But
I don't know if they can do that because if they, there's a certain amount of call-ups you get. So this might have to wait till next year, to be honest.
Bettman's sitting in the stands, number one. I can guarantee you that because the office
cares about him.
Yeah. He's going to be sitting there. He's going to give a warning.
Gary.
There's going to be nothing.
Jerry.
All right. There's going to be nothing. But at the same time, too, I wouldn't be surprised if fucking Wilson puts in 2 goals and an assist next game either. It's just that's the way it is right now. And I think, you know what? This is a good learning lesson for other teams. This is a good learning lesson for Toronto. You can imagine Matthews going after Wilson because he put his hand on Martin or something like that. That I made a point about this show. This makes me appreciate Wayne Simmons more on having him on Toronto. Like this really opened my eyes. I'm not saying the way he's played this year. I don't care about that. I care about today moving forward. This guy cannot be out of your lineup come game 1.
I absolutely agree for sure.
This is the perfect example.
I thought you brought up a great point, Frank, because when I initially saw this, And they were like, yeah, he got fined. I said, oh, he got fined for the takedown. And they were like, no, he got fined for the punch. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And there's no George. If I would have gone through this saying he got fined for the takedown, because the takedown was 1,000 times worse. 1,000.
He pulled his hair.
And it looked like he might have slew-footed him a little bit.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's hard to tell in the lifetime. I hear a lot of people, though, on the radio. They're like, yeah, Tom Wilson has to change the way he plays. That's never going to happen, because then Tom Wilson isn't in the league. If people thinking that he's going to change his game, no, it's not going to happen. And the only way to stop it is drop like 3. I would have signed like a bunch of fighters, as many as I could for tomorrow. I would have had Johnny Scott coming down
out of retirement. Former Ranger.
And you know who would have appreciated that? Those 5 guys: Lafreniere, Zibanejad, Kako, Fox, Breadman.
I would not be surprised.